You know, folks, J.D. Vance has taken the phrase saying the quiet part out loud. He's taken that to a whole new level. J.D. Vance does not have any tact at all. He doesn't. He just speaks. He doesn't even realize how it sounds when he says it, and he just goes for it. And to me, he's worse than Trump, and to me, he's more dangerous than Trump because J.D.'s smarter. You can think whatever you want to think about J.D. Vance, but he is nowhere near the idiot that Donald Trump is. And I do believe that J.D. is sitting back and he's picking his spots. And I believe when the time comes, he will throw Trump under the bus. I believe he's an opportunist who absolutely, Trump could never trust him. But Trump's too stupid to see that. I'm going to play you some clips of J.D. because he's always in the media. He's learned that from Trump. He's learned that you got to get in front of a camera and you got to keep talking. And it don't matter if you're lying. It don't matter if you're being a hypocrite. You just have to keep going for it. JD understands that better than anybody. And so we're going to watch a couple of clips here, and I'll go ahead and warn you. This first one is pretty damn cringe. He's got a comedian here trying to ask him a question, and JD tries his best to be relatable, and it's so cringe, and his answer to this question is so pathetic, but we need to talk about it, so let's take a look.
Hello, JD. How you doing today, man?
Good. How you doing?
In the wise words of Ricky Bobby, I don't know what to do with my hands.
Don't feel bad. Neither do I half the time, man.
Okay. First off, yeah, laugh it up. Okay, first off, I just want to say I am a huge supporter of the Trump administration. I was 3 months too late to vote for you guys, but if I could have, I would have. So I'm a huge supporter of you guys before I make my argument, but there is something you guys are doing that is kind of disturbing me a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. You guys have sent the military into Washington, D.C. and a few other cities that I can't think of off the top of my head, which, first off, they've had wonderful results. Like, no one can deny the results of that. It's wonderful. Some might even say the greatest. I'm a comedian.
I like this guy. Who is this guy?
Thank you, J.D. I like you, too.
Now he's gonna ask the question about all the shit that we did wrong, but that's okay. Go ahead and ask your question.
But yeah, I'm just wondering, well, it's not necessarily something you did wrong, but it's what could someone else do wrong? Let's say we get a complete tyrant in office, and let's say Turning Point USA is having a huge protest against, something really bad that we don't like, and let's say he's, a president is saying that it's getting violent. How can we, I'm trying to think, my mind's kind of blank. What is the difference between what you're doing and how could we prevent someone from abusing that power?
Yeah, so look, I understand where the question is coming from, and I think it's a fair question. And it's going to sound like I'm being sarcastic, and it really is not meant in any offense. But when you talk about what could another administration do, to take a wild, hypothetical example totally off the top of my head, what if Joe Biden sent the Federal Bureau of Investigation to start arresting his political opponents? Okay? So here's something that I want every conservative to remember. It's an important part of my entire political philosophy is we cannot be afraid to do something because the left might do it in the future. The left is already going to do it regardless of whether we do it. That is the takeaway of the last 40 years.
You know, I got to be honest with you. As I'm sitting there watching that, I just flashed back to being in church. Now, follow me on this one. Back when I was a kid going to church, there would always be the kid that would have a question. And it would be a legitimate question. And they would always start off by going, well, now listen, I believe in God and I believe in Jesus. I really do. But I just got to ask you this. And they would always start that way, real sheepishly nervous, like I'm afraid. Just want you to know that I do believe. I'm a believer, but I do have this question that's been puzzling me. That's how that came off. That kid is literally sitting there and he's thought for himself just for a minute. Just for a minute. He was that close. He was that close to thinking for himself and to saying, wait a minute, if they could do this to me, they could do it to, if they could do this to other people, they could do it to me. He was that close. And then JD just slaps him right back in line by pulling out a complete bullshit analogy that does not line up whatsoever. Joe Biden was not sending the FBI after his political opponents. They were going after the political opponents because of the crimes and the laws that they broke. That's why Donald Trump was being held accountable for his wrongdoing that we all saw him do right out in the open, right in front of our faces, and they have gaslit us this entire time by saying, oh, Biden was going after his political opponents. And I use this analogy a lot of times, but it would be the same thing that if Jesse James was saying, well, they were coming after me. Now let me get in charge of the bank, and then I'll go after the bankers, and I'll expose the deep state. That's what we're up against, folks. But J.D. Vance has no shame in the stuff that he says. He's married to an immigrant of a different faith, but he is completely against immigration. And these next couple clips I'm going to play, again, they're very cringe, but this guy is one heartbeat away from being our president, so I think we need to take a look at it.
If you ask the question, what is the exact right number of immigrants for the United States to let in, it is just very specific on the context. If you go back to the 1920s, the United States passed an Immigration Reform Act that effectively cut down immigration to close to zero for 40 years in this country. And what happened over those 40 years? The many people who had come from many different foreign countries and different foreign cultures, they assimilated into American culture. And there was an expectation that they would assimilate into American culture. I think we have two problems in our immigration system today. And my guess is you're probably a slightly more leftist political persuasion, liberal political persuasion, maybe not. But here's the thing. I remember back in my establishment GOP days when I was still very early getting involved in Republican politics, I remember a conservative think tank person who told me that one of the reasons why immigration was really good is that if you had enough diversity in a country, people would mistrust each other and they wouldn't join labor unions. Okay? So when I see a lot of left-wing people who theoretically support organized labor saying we need to flood the country with a limitless number of immigrants, they're unwilling to set any limitations on it. My response to that is you are destroying the very social trust on which American freedom and prosperity was built. And that is really important to me. So the honest answer to your question, what is the exact number of immigrants America should accept in the future? Right now, the answer is far less than we've been accepting. We have got to become a common community again, and you can't do that when you have such high numbers of immigration, which is one of the reasons why we have the immigration policy we do. Thank you.
And when he says common community, what he means is an all-white community. That's what he's saying. And it's bad enough that he sits there and says that bullshit, but I always point out that it's even worse that there is a group of people out there that will cheer and applaud this stuff. But this is straight-up white supremacy coming from a dude who is married to an immigrant of a different faith, and they're raising kids together. And Trump is married to an immigrant. It's so hypocritical on their parts, and it's also par for the course when it comes to racist people. It's always those type of people that will have the immigrant wife will be the one speaking the loudest against immigrants. But Republicans have completely gotten away from how we've covered here on the channel before, how Reagan and the Bushes used to talk about immigration and how that people coming to this country was a good thing. They don't want anyone here except white, rich men, and they want them to be in control. And they want to manipulate the people like JD was manipulating in the first clip I showed you, the young boy that was that close to waking up. I hope he makes it. I hope that kid eventually realizes, hey, I got played. For whatever reason, that clip just reminded me of being back in church when the preacher would give a bullshit answer and the kid would go, okay, and, give him a salute. And it's like, no, he didn't answer your question. You just ended up getting played. And in this next clip, man, JD's playing everybody because he's just going ahead now, and he really goes for it here and just says the quiet part completely out loud. And again, there will be people that will cheer this on.
Who's out of the house is actually evicted from the house because there are people who are going to pay more for rent. And then what happens is 20 people move into a 3-bedroom house. 20 people from a totally different culture, totally different ways of interacting. Again, we can respect their dignity while also being angry at the Biden administration for letting that situation happen and recognizing that their next door neighbors are going to say, well, wait a second. What is going on here? I don't know these people. They don't speak the same language that I do. And because there are 20 in the house next door, it's a little bit rowdier than it was when there was just a family of 4, a family of 5. It is totally reasonable and acceptable for American citizens to look at their next door neighbors and say, I want to live next to people who I have something in common with. I don't want to live next to 4 families of strangers.
I tell you what, I would much rather live next to people that didn't speak the language as to live next to MAGA. That's just me, because MAGA is the threat. They always have been. You go back to January 6th, do you want to live next to those people? Do you want to live next to people that thinks it's okay to go to the Capitol and beat police officers over the head? Yeah, I'm always going to bring that point back up. I'm never going to let them live that one down, because that to me defines MAGA and who they truly are. But yeah, it's perfectly acceptable to just look over at people and say, I don't want you in my country. That's the Vice President of the United States saying that out loud in 2025. So you can sit back all day long and we can criticize Trump all day long and we can point out what a hypocrite and what an idiot that he is. But J.D. Vance is young. He's got an entire career ahead of him. And he's going harder in the paint than Trump with his racism and with his bigotry. And he's trying to sane wash and normalize every bit of it. And we can't allow that to happen. I would like for us to get back to being a country that welcomes people in. And everybody from all over the world wants to come here to make a better way for themselves. But Donald Trump and this administration, this radical right-wing regime, is quickly, I started to say slowly, but it's not slowly happening. They are quickly just chipping away at everything we once stood for. And who would want to come here now? I mean, if you were from another part of the world, who would want to come to the United States and better themselves like they used to? Used to, we were that light that everybody wanted to see. We were that shining example of where everybody wanted to go and live the American dream. They threw the American dream in the garbage a long time ago. They do not believe in it. They believe it's perfectly acceptable to live in a world where you can be racist. And yep, I said that because that's exactly what he said. We're not going to sit back here and be gaslit and not call this stuff out. I know they get mad when I say that they say racist things. I do not say that to try to win an argument. I say that when they're saying racist things, and I say that when they're trying to same wash and normalize racism. And when he says, he wants his community to be, he wants a white community. That's what he's saying. And he has no problem saying it out loud. And there's people out there that are cheering this on. That's why, after the clips I played, do you understand now why that J.D. Vance won't call out groups like the Proud Boys and won't call out Nazis? Do you get it now? That's why that he won't call it out.